Hello and welcome to CryptoTV. I'm your host, Ornella Hernandez, and I'll be breaking down some of the latest news from the Web3 world. Kraken getting probed by the IRS and what this means for the greater industry. And we have a special guest joining us virtually to talk about how gaming and gamified experiences are central to adoption. Let's get started. It's been a tough time for crypto exchanges this year. Kraken got fined $30 million and was forced to shut down its staking services. Coinbase got sued by the SEC. Binance US lost its banking partners. Now, it's Kraken's turn again. The crypto exchange has been court-ordered to turn over information on some of its customers to the Internal Revenue Service, the IRS of the United States. What does this mean? Kraken will now need to cough up all info for any Kraken user that traded at least $20,000 in crypto between 2016 and 2020. That includes info like legal name, physical address, taxpayer identification number. Wouldn't be surprised if they also asked for the name of your first pet or the street that you grew up on. Well, they probably already have that information. So why does this matter? Well, because Kraken might be the first, but it most likely will not be the last exchange that gets ordered to share customer info. And the main reason behind the IRS investigation is to determine if any of the exchange's users had underreported their taxes. The agency wants to ensure that users are fulfilling their tax obligations and not evading them. The investigation is part of the IRS's efforts to crack down on tax non-compliance in the cryptocurrency industry. Kraken's attempts to block the IRS tax probe have been unsuccessful in court. A federal court ruled in favor of the IRS, ordering Kraken to release users' information to the agency. This has sparked concern over privacy and data protection implications of the IRS investigation. Some argue that the disclosure of customer data to the IRS could infringe on users' privacy rights. The IRS investigation, along with other exchanges, highlights the growing regulatory focus on tax compliance and the need for clear guidelines and regulations regarding cryptocurrency taxation. You do not want to be on the bad side of the IRS. Trust me. What do you guys think about all this? Are these crackdowns a necessary evil that needed to happen to advance the industry? Or are they just haters? Let me know what you think in the comments. And in gaming news, French video game publisher Ubisoft reveals its next blockchain game. It's called Champions Tactics. We don't know too many details yet, but it's an original PC game described as a player versus player tactical role-playing game experience. And it's being developed on the Oasys blockchain, which is a gaming-centric blockchain network that has attracted the interest of other gaming giants like Square Enix, Sega, and Bandai Namco. Now, the Assassin's Creed game maker Ubisoft plans to assemble a team of mythical champions, engage in thrilling tactical battles against other players, and discover the legends of the dark and mystical world of Grimoria. It said in an official description. Let's see how its gamers respond this time. Because last time Ubisoft tried to get into NFTs in late 2021, it caused quite a stir in the gaming world when it revealed that it would launch limited edition NFT-based items on the Tezos blockchain for the PC version of the Tom Clancy game Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Hardcore gamers and lovers of Ghost Recon were not having it, but as more and more video games with Web3 elements are being developed, both by indie studios and giants like Ubisoft, I think it's safe to say that they are here to stay. Now, don't go away because we have a special guest coming on. His name is Konstantin Horejsi, and he's from the crypto exchange Blocktrade. So stay tuned for that conversation. Joining us today is Konstantin Horejsi, the Chief Product Officer at Blocktrade. How are you today, Konstantin? Thank you for joining us.
Very good, Anna. Thanks for having me.
So I wanted to learn a little bit more about Blocktrade. I understand that it's an exchange based out of Europe, but first let's just start with your background and how you got into the industry in the first place.
So that's actually pretty interesting because I virtually have zero background in IT. I'm an aerospace engineer from an education perspective, and I worked in that industry for over 2 decades and had a short stint in the automotive industry as well. But the good thing with engineering is always you're pretty number funding. And when I saw crypto in 2015, 2016, when I bought my first Bitcoin, I was completely hooked. And I knew there was a new technology coming. And yes, I mean, it's not an aircraft, but it has the exact same ability to change the world and bring us closer together. So
Do you
I thought, why
remember,
not give it a try?
Konstantin, do you remember what the price of Bitcoin was at that time when you bought it?
I do. 580 euros, which was approximately around 650 US dollars back then.
Yeah, so you've made a profit now, I assume?
Well, that's fair to say, I guess. But still, I mean, I could have bought more in hindsight. But
Hindsight is
then
20/20.
again, hindsight is always 20/20. So yeah, still wasn't the worst decision that I took there in my life.
Okay, I see. And then how did that lead you to Blocktrade?
Well, I have been dangling in the space and always thinking like, can I do it better than other exchanges can? Because of course you start on the big names and then you go down the rabbit hole and go to this exchange where this unique coin is available and the other way around. And you get some experience and see that the user experience is actually complicated, to put it mildly. So going around switching from one wallet to the other, using a DEX in between to get to the actual coin that you need is a really cumbersome process. And at some point I was contacted by a colleague of mine, former colleague, who went from banking into crypto and said, look, I know you can do a product, and in the end, it's the same as developing anything for an aircraft or the automotive industry. You need to make sure the engineers don't go overboard, and you need to make sure that the timeline is somewhat kept. And that's my task right now. I consider myself more like a look on the watch and say, hey guys, we need to finish, than like a technical expert, but the background is still there.
Okay, so let's back it up a little bit and just explain how Blocktrade operates compared to other bigger crypto exchanges.
Well, the main idea on Blocktrade is we know there are bigger ones, and there is no reason to target the bigger ones or the customers of the bigger ones, because I think the market is not yet very mature. So you will still have enough people coming into the market. And what we see from actually now users flooding into the market, that the user experience on large exchanges is really overwhelming. So to name the best example, you go on Binance and you see charts that a Forex trader can deal with. But if my mom, who just turned 70, wants to buy some crypto coin for whatever reason, there is absolutely zero chance she can deal with Binance. And this is the main idea that we had about 2 years ago, that we say, okay, the onboarding experience for somebody who's completely new into the crypto world and tries to get the first foot in that really weird space needs to be taken by the hand and guided in a certain way. And when we had that developed, so with a really simple user interface, you literally speaking, you can't beginning, we gradually give you more options so that you're not overwhelmed in the beginning. And this is combined with a gamified approach. So basically speaking, you have a character on Blocktrade, you level this character up. The higher the level, the more access to options you have, the higher your benefits are. And this is actually working quite nicely. We've projected that max level would be reached after half a year, and we have the first guy on max level since today. So this is quite interesting. People are really considering it as a game, but doing actual investments on the way, and are very happy with the approach that we do.
Yeah, so that is an issue that I hear a lot from other people in the industry, that UI and UX needs to be greatly improved in order to onboard more people. So gaming is a great way to do that. And so I wanted to learn a little bit more of just what exactly that means. You mentioned that people think of the exchange more of like a game. They don't realize that they're investing. So how did you go about creating that?
I mean, they do realize that they're investing, because in the end, we're still a crypto platform. But it is way simpler if you take them by the hand and say, look, guys, you already watched the episode on dollar cost averaging your investment. You set up a savings plan. If you fire up that saving plans with, let's say, 10 euros a week or something, we give you extra XP points. And those XP points will gradually get you to a higher level, which brings benefit. So basically every action platform that you do increases the A, your level, but B, also your awareness of the space and what it actually does. And I think gaming actually works for pretty much everybody. So pretty much everybody understands the concept of I do something right, I get a reward for it. And this is, the good thing is, if you do it right, it works for pretty much everybody. And this is, I mean, there was a lot of effort put in the beginning so that everybody can understand what it actually means, what it does, how the rewards should be structured. But now that it's running, it's really a nice USP, so to say.
And how do you incorporate NFTs into the platform? I see that there's like little avatars, they look like Greek gods and goddesses. How does that work?
Well, exactly. So we were actually looking for a theme that is pretty much worldwidely known. We could have gone with cat content, which would have worked for Web3 perfectly, but it was a bit boring. So we decided to go with Greek gods. And basically you can choose the Greek god out of the mythology. So you can be Zeus, or you can be Hades or Hera, for whatever floats your boat. And this character levels up. So he starts with a really plain background and almost no features. And if we pick Zeus as an example, he will end up with lightning, with laser eyes, or shiny armor. And those avatars, at least on the higher levels, are becoming NFTs. And will get extra benefits outside of the Blocktrade world. So the logical thing is when you have such an ecosystem where you can say, okay, you have users that are into gaming there and are relatively crypto savvy, we figured, and the market currently approves this approach, that games would be interested to get into those users. And ours can be used in other ecosystems, other games, as either a benefit or as playing character. And Greek Gods will not be the last NFT series that we're going to issue, but it's the start for the beginning.
So there, you said it's interoperable, that the avatar can be used in other platforms or games?
Yes, technically speaking, it's currently already interoperable, and we're working with 2 or 3 gaming studios right now to get them into games. To a little bit test the waters. I think that's currently the shift the industry does, to do a bridge between Web 2 and Web 3 and see what's actually working on an NFT or Web 3 gaming level. And I think we're pretty much at the forefront here right now from a centralized exchange perspective. So hope for the best.
So what do you say to someone who might be untrustworthy of centralized exchanges, given a lot of the news with FTX and recently in the crypto world, people think crypto might be a scam and the market isn't worth investing in. So what do you say to someone like that?
I mean, every opinion to their own, but I would say actually that the risk has significantly decreased over the recent events, say FTX. Because main problem is people now realize that there is a counterparty risk pretty much at all the time, and that doesn't matter. Your bank can go bankrupt, different conditions. The important thing is that your funds are not the bank's funds. So this basically that we take a lot of care at Blocktrade. We are making sure, and we have it audited by 4 different audit companies, that our customer funds are completely separated and held in individual custody accounts that where Blocktrade doesn't. I do feel that the space has gained credibility overall. So I do know from several family offices that were very skeptical 2 years ago, and they're now saying a little bit of exposure, 1-2% of the net worth, wouldn't hurt. And I think that's the right way to go. Slow but steady mass adoption with regular clarity, wipe out the not so nice players, and then see who's left standing.
Yeah, definitely, I agree. I guess it was a way to weed out the bad actors. So you think that the big difference now is that there's more regulation in place? You mentioned that in Europe, there's a lot more clarity if we compare it to the US, for example, that has a mess going on right now. And I can say that because I'm from the US. But you think Europe and other countries like the UAE, for example, have handled regulation pretty well, would you say?
Yeah, I think we're going in the right direction. Europe took the first step now. I still think it's improvable, obviously, because I think every law is at some point improvable.
Yeah.
But I think it's rather important that the playing field for every actor in a certain space is somewhat level. So at least everybody should follow the same AML and laws should follow the same KYC laws. And as long as this playing field is somewhat even, then it's a fair competition. The thing in the US is I'm pretty certain that also US will follow within the next year with some comparable guidance, but I would generally agree right now it's rather complicated to have a compliant exchange in the United States, which is a reason why we're really not expanding there, because legal uncertainty is really dangerous for both us and our customers. So, yeah.
What's the main risk for customers, would you say, to have unclear rules?
Well, currently assume there was the SEC continues their path to not make sure what token they consider a security or not, and you're an investor in security,
Right.
and your funds get blocked for whatever reason, and you're maybe a hefty investor. I still do think you will get your funds back at some point, but at some point could mean anything from 3 months to 2 years. And having your funds blocked for 2 years with uncertainty how it goes on, not being able to take a loan against them or even sell them, is probably, even for a private customer, quite cumbersome. And yeah, I do think regulatory clarity has never hurt a market in its maturity stage.
All right, and so then let's take it back to gaming a little bit more, because gamers, they don't follow market trends. They're gonna play no matter what's going on in the world, right? So what do you think needs to happen in order to foster more people into the ecosystem and to maybe get over the fact that it's a NFT-based game or a Web3-based game and just say, it's a game, but it happens to have Web3 elements in it? What needs to happen to get there?
Yeah, I think you're actually taking the approach right with the question. Just because it's a Web3 game, if the gameplay sucks and the graphics are not good, why would you bother playing it? Of course, there is like, to a game, there is always like 2 or 3 things, but the 2 major ones are the gameplay and the graphics. If the gameplay is cool and the graphics are meh, then still a lot of people will play it. If the graphics are awesome and the gameplay is meh, and you only get 20 hours out of it, still a lot of people will buy it. Yeah. I think right now, the Web3 gaming thing, the path isn't totally clear. So there were some indie games and probably some unexpected successes in Web3 games with Axis and the likes. And now we're at the stage where the big gaming development companies actually try to go into the market, but they don't go all in. They do a very risk-averse approach, and they take existing stories / games and put them in a Web3 content, just put the Web3 label on it. And I think there were some pretty bad tries in the last years. I think that the industry now realizes and that the approaches are getting better and better. But sometimes I always ask myself, why would you need a token case or an NFT case for that? You could just basically make it a download content and you'd be fine. But just slap the label Web3 on it, probably.
Are you referring to, you mentioned gaming giants, are you referring to like Ubisoft or Sega and their attempts to get into NFT gaming?
Yeah, as the most recent examples, for example. So Sega is taking a quite known brand actually, and let's see how Sangokushitesen actually works as a Web3 game, because the technology could support you there. Ubisoft, not sure. I have seen the trailer and the trailer looks awesome. But then again, that's graphics. And if the gameplay is okay. But I still think those are like already tries where you'd say, okay, there is a studio contract that does, this is not a cheap endeavor that they're doing there. This is a multi-million-dollar try. So I'd guess they're taking it more seriously now. Still, a lot of questions come with that. Is the NFT actually valuable? Because that would be an ecosystem question. What's the token worth? The game is no longer supported. To be honest, right now, basically zero. And those questions will arise at some point as soon as there is real money involved. And that will be for the industry to figure out. However, looking at like longer back in the history, there was three possibilities that drove new technology forward. Either it was a business technology, so businesses adopted it really quickly and pushed it forward. It was gaming and or gambling that pushed something forward, or it was the adult entertainment industry. And gaming is probably the one with the largest impact because 8 years and goes up to 99 theoretically. And the generation that had the first Game Boy in school is now over 40 years old. I know for a fact.
Yeah, no, I agree. There was a lot of backlash in the beginning when Ubisoft came in. I think more purist gamers were like, they're just trying to make more money, like this isn't about us. They didn't really understand maybe the experiment aspect of Ubisoft. But then again, like you just mentioned now, I think the crypto industry maybe combines all of those aspects from business to gambling in the market, right? To gaming, and maybe gaming is what will make the difference in the long run in terms of bringing more people into the industry.
I would agree that probably some companies will still try to make cash grabs. And there is nothing to hinder them, to be very honest. But this has happened before as well. So somebody issued a game on PlayStation, you bought it for $60 and it was crap and you couldn't return it. Now right. The cash grab is slightly different. You buy downloadable content, you buy an expansion pack for €4, you buy, I don't know, extra mana pots or extra gems for €4. Technically speaking, they could do the same on the blockchain. And I do know, but this has always been the case, that hardcore gamers, never mind if they were crypto aficionados or not, they were always saying, oh, look, they're going commercial now, blah, blah, everything is getting easy, casual gamers are taking over. If I look at it from a business perspective, it makes a lot of sense because I'd rather feed 1 million casual gamers than 5,000 hardcore gamers from a money perspective.
Yeah.
So, and nevertheless, if we have 500 game studios going into Web3 with a lot of money and a lot of power, the technology will also adapt and will become better. And this will also be beneficial for hardcore gamers. So I don't see the two approaches mutually exclusive. I think they will benefit each other in the long term. There is a transition period.
Of course, of course. Yeah, like you said, I think the industry is in a infancy stage, or it's not mature. It's not mature enough yet, so it's still in that infancy stage. It's like a child that's like growing up, and there's a lot of trial and error on the way. But I happen to be one of those casual gamers, so hopefully they will bring more NFT gaming into the casual game space. And then just one last question I did want to ask, just maybe what your outlook was on the market and on the rest of for the rest of the year, maybe the next 6 months, what you think the crypto investors have to look out for.
Personal opinion, not financial advice, obviously.
Of course.
But I would think that we will see continuous price data for the larger coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, the likes. I do not think altcoin season is here yet, but Bitcoin halving is around the corner. And historically speaking, Bitcoin halving was always a event that caused a major bull run in the following year. There is one major question tackles myself, and I'm not even sure if I can give an answer to that. What's completely different is the macroeconomic outlook. So I'm still thinking a lot of with wars going on worldwide. There is an uncertainty with recessions coming in very important markets. And bluntly speaking, if people don't have enough money to buy their day's needs, it will be pretty problematic to buy cryptos. So historically speaking, institutions have always set the lower boundary of the price, and the spikes were given by the retail investors. And if the retail investors don't have money to chip in, the price spike will probably be lower. However, to just contradict myself in the next sentence, I do feel that with the BlackRock ETF being applied, rejected, reapplied, rejected, reapplied again, there is very much interest from institutional investors to go into the space, and I would see this on our platform as well. So maybe this time it is actually slightly different. But I am probably very positive for end of the year. I think it's going to be a rough patch until then with not much going on.
Okay, so you think that these institutional giants getting into the space will actually make a difference and maybe foster at least the SEC to change the regulation and like really push them to change their minds?
I would say, from purely speaking from a trading perspective, probably not. Because if BlackRock is worth their money, they really think that they can get the Bitcoin ETF through, they already bought the Bitcoin at cheaper prices. Of course, from a mental state of the market, I always think that the market is mentally very unstable. At some day he's super euphoric, and the next day he's completely of the market as a little bit of a maniac, depressive guy.
Gonna have a breakdown.
I'm thinking that the news of having a Bitcoin ETF approved by the SEC, for example, would just on the news alone push the market up.
Yeah, definitely. Well, just the application, the news of the application pushed the market up.
Sorry, say that again. You were cutting off.
Just the news of the application boosted the market. So if it does pass, it'll definitely keep going up.
Exactly. And of course, there is like at least a theory that a lot of institutional investors, such as pension funds in the US, cannot invest, legally speaking, into crypto right now, but they can invest in any ETF issued by BlackRock.
Right.
So, of course, if large pension funds in the United States would invest into crypto, and even if it's 0.5% of their total assets under management, this will absolutely drive the price up.
Definitely. Okay, so you are optimistic then and hopeful that the halving will maybe trigger the next bull run.
Well, again, historically speaking, it would. So I wouldn't be utterly surprised if it wouldn't. The investment advice from my perspective would be, don't put all your eggs in one basket and rely on the Bitcoin halving making Bitcoin go boom. I wouldn't do that, but to look at the market closely and see the signs and make an informed investment decision, I am still very bullish on the market overall.
All right, good advice. Well, thank you so much, Konstantin. We are out of time, so thanks again for joining us and enjoy the rest of the day. The market report coming up.
First up, NFTs, blue chips are in the red big time. Bored Apes is down 88% from April 2022 when it peaked to its highest levels. Azuki dipped around 60% in the past week. Institutional investors are only interested in Bitcoin and Bitcoin-related funds and products right now as BTC continues to lead the market IAT $30,000 this week. Solana is past the 9% today. Ethereum is hitting the 1800s USD today. Shiba Inu is reaching the 2%. So, when Bitcoin ETF.
That's it for today on Crypto TV. Please remember to hit that like button and leave your thoughts in the comment section. See you next time.